receiving anything better than you would if you went to a poor public defender. And the reason is because they're in it for the money, not for the humanity.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Okay. So you saying you have to have an attorney? You can't represent yourself?
Yeah. Well,
I'm saying you can represent yourself, but why would you do that?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you hurt yourself.
That's yeah. I was gonna say one of the things that I learned in law school, and Monique actually was a teacher, so I know she didn't really go into that part of it, but one of the things that they would say is that the client who decides to represent himself has a fool for an
Fool
attorney.
for an attorney.
And
Oh,
basically, because remember, this is a game of chess, and most defendants are used to playing checkers, if you will. You're not even playing the same game, and so it is one of the things. Monique, and I know we got some more audience questions, but I just wanted to ask you to talk about a little bit about the dynamic of in our society we're seeing with George Floyd and all of these other, senseless killings. We're seeing a heightened awareness that is happening, but there is a population that has not been addressed, and that is our population that is in prison. And I know that you're working to change going forward, but two questions. How do you change previously? And I guess we can start actually with a prior question. What do you think is the reaction or what's happening in our prison system? We had a recent killing last week at Lake Correctional Facility of an inmate by a corrections officer. What do we do with that, and how do you change what has happened in the past?
So one of the things that I think is really important with that is public awareness of the inhumanity of prison. That is like, because many people, because TV gives us this false sense that prison is some sort of vacation. You'll hear uninformed people say things like, they're going to go off to a country club and watch cable TV and get 3 meals a day. I don't know what prison that is, but it's none of the ones that any of my clients have gone to. People need to understand, and I've been talking about this because I now have a platform as a candidate for state attorney. Even if I never win, I have a platform where people are listening to what I'm saying, and I'm able to bring a perspective that no one has ever run for this seat has ever brought, right? So I've been talking about the inhumanities of prison, talking about the fact that in Florida, one of the hottest states in the country, we have men and women who are imprisoned with no air condition. And it's not that they don't realize that these people need air condition, because they have shacks that their guards are in air condition. But it's okay for the prisoners to go without air condition in 100 and 104 and 105 degree heat. But they make sure that their correction officers are comfortably seated and housed in places that have air condition within the same units of the human beings that they're supervising, right? We have to talk about the inhumanity of prison. The fact that the food that is served to the prisoners, our loved ones, okay, is not food that would be eaten by anyone voluntarily, right? We have to talk about the companies that prey on our families with their telephone rates that are exorbitant and beyond the cost of a regular telephone call. The stamps and the emails that you have to pay for that you don't have to pay for in the regular world. The for-profit prison industry that makes family members pay for reasonable food for their loved ones to eat because they can't eat the food that's served in prison. So we have to talk about the inhumane treatment first. And then we have to talk about the constant assaults and batteries that are imposed upon the individuals who are in the state custody, right? And then get to how many murders have there been that we don't even know about. Okay? So we need to take prison from a place where it is normalized to a place where we are looking at it and saying, is this what we want as a country? Is this how we want to treat our citizens? Because the reality of it is that if you look at the history of our country, you'll see that prison is just modern day slavery. We came from slavery into segregation. We came from segregation into Jim Crow. We came from Jim Crow into mass incarceration. Prison is modern day slavery. And in order for it to change, we have to, one, change the people who make the determination who's going to prison and who's not. And two, change the people who are determining how our prisoners should be taken care of. Because it is deplorable and it is an abomination and it's a humanitarian crisis.
Monique, you said something very, very valuable as it relates to the prison system and as it relates to everything that is going on in the prison system. But, and I can see that you're extremely passionate about it, because at the end of the day, we are having to deal with those citizens. So, Monique, you as a state attorney, I mean, what do you do about it? Or can you do anything about it? Or is it just you shout to the top of your lungs and hope somebody listens? What do you do?
One of the things I did as a law professor was that I required all of my students to go visit prison. That was something that had never been done before. There was a lot of pushback for it. But I believe that people who work in the criminal legal system should not be handing out prison sentences to a place that they've never even been to.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so that was something innovative that I was able to do, and that was for not just defense attorneys, it was for future prosecutors too, because if you're going to send someone there, then you need to know what it looks like.
Right.
As the state attorney, what can I do? One, I have policies that I can put in place that can determine what we prosecute, how we prosecute, and who goes to prison. Now, I don't want to give the misbelief that I have total control over this, because there are laws in place, and I don't create the law. The legislature creates the law. The legislature created sentencing guidelines that are wholly responsible for who goes to prison, because certain charges score a certain amount of points, and once you receive a certain amount of points, you go to prison for a minimum amount of time, right? How I can impact that is because I have discretion over what charges are charged, right? What charges are brought against individuals. So that's how I can impact how many people we're sending to prison out of my circuit.
So
Okay.
Monique, we want to jump to some questions. We've got another question on that came in.
Who governs the prisons?
So we got some questions, and one of the questions is, who governs the prisons? What's the impact of that?
The Florida Department of Corrections is the entity that governs the prison, and I believe the head of that department is appointed by the governor.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna just stop for a minute and let y'all figure out how, okay.
So if we haven't figured it out, it's an election, right? If you do not change the person who is in that, and currently it's Mark Inch, and recently Mark Inch was actually seen at a Black History program, and he was caught on film or on tape actually making racist comments. When the young lady in the administration approached him or confronted him about it, she was fired. So that is who we have in charge, who is over the Florida Department of Corrections. So again, how do we expect a change when the people who are in charge are used to this type of behavior because they created it? And so, I look at, if we can't get to the people who are appointed, we can get to the people who appoint them, because those are the people that we elect, the governor.
So this brings me back to the point of how important elections are, because a lot of times elections happen, and one, we don't know that they're happening, two, we don't know who's running, and three, we stay home and don't vote. Elections matter. Elections matter. We could change this whole country if we showed up and vote. There's a meme going around, and I didn't post it because I don't know if those are facts, but if they are, they're very disturbing. It talks about how in the 2016 election, when Trump was elected, how many Black people stayed home and didn't vote, and how much he won those states by. and the amount that he won by was less than the amount of black people who stayed home and didn't vote. And now, let me tell you how that impacts you directly, because since Trump has been in office, he has nominated 200 federal judges. 200. And they have lifetime appointments. That directly impacts our system.
That's a big thing.
So we have another question from Sheena Mullins. She asks, if you are elected, what is basic action, since some studies show that blacks make up 13% of the United States population, but we are 39% of the prison population. How is this, and what will you do to change this?
In Florida, we're 22% and 49%.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay, 22% and 49% of the prison population. So what do I do to change this? Because it's we've had a lot of conversations for a lot of years. The racial disparities are known. It's not like we just woke up one day and turned on a light and was like, oh my God, look at that. There are more black people in prison than anyone else. We know that.
Right.
Go to the prison. You can see that. What are we going to do to change it? We have to be intentional about changing it. We have to review case prosecutions to see if there's disparate treatment being given to black people than other races. We have to train our prosecutors to be hypersensitive and aware of these disparities. We have to have uncomfortable conversations, because while the term implicit bias has come out so that people can feel better and say, oh, well, I didn't do it on purpose, it's just something that's implicit. There's still people who are doing it on purpose. And we have to talk to them too.
Yeah.
So we have to institute policies and standards of review that actually look for race in the caseloads to see if people are being treated differently. And if so, then that prosecutor has to either have a really good explanation or they have to find another place to work.
That's good. Monique, you're very passionate about this, and I don't want to skip through why you are extremely passionate about what you're doing. I think it's important for you to tell a little bit about your story. I mean, we kind of started out and we kind of ran into this, but give us, number one, give us a little bit of backstory on why you're doing this, and number two, tell us how we can help. What can we do? Is it money? We know votes, but we're in Polk County, or we're in Tampa right now, but how do we help around the world?
I'm extremely passionate about this. This is my destiny. This is what I was brought into this world to do. So even if I don't win this election, I will go to my grave fighting for reform in this system. When I got ready to do this campaign, my advisors told me, you're going to have to talk about your brother. And I was hesitant because for those of us who have family members that are incarcerated, you know that there's guilt and there's shame that goes along with having an incarcerated family member. For most of my life, he was my family secret. We didn't talk about him. We didn't talk about his situation. I knew that he was always my driving force, but he was not something that we discussed. And when I decided to run for this seat, my mother did not want me to do it because she knew that this is something that could, that I was vulnerable for and that could be used against me. And much to my surprise, this has been the single most thing that people can identify with me on. Because the reality of it is, especially in the Black community, if you don't have a family member in prison and you haven't been to prison, then you know someone who has. So my brother, who is a veteran of the United States Air Force, was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and PTSD. And he self-medicated like many people with those diagnoses do, because the drugs that are prescribed have such a negative impact that they don't take those drugs. And he began self-medicating with illegal drugs and developed an addiction, and has spent most of my life in and out of the criminal legal system. When I was 9 years old, that was the first time that I remember hearing that my brother was in jail. And at 9 years old, I knew that that was wrong, and that someone who was ill should not be incarcerated, they should be helped. And that was a defining moment for me. Like, I can see it as though it was yesterday. I can tell you where I was standing and you know, when my dad told me that my brother was in jail. And I had dedicated my entire life to fighting for criminal justice reform as a result of that. I went to high school and was in a law program in high school, one of the very first students to be in a law program in high school. In college, I studied criminal justice and psychology because the importance of the brain and, you know, criminal justice and how those two things work together is very important. And in law school, all I ever did was stay focused on becoming a defense attorney, because at that time I believed that that was the most effective way for me to change the system. So it is very personal to me, because as we speak, my brother is sitting in a Florida prison without air condition, with food that is not edible for human beings, and a potential victim of abuse and brutality at any given moment. And I need for you all to join with me to change that, because it's not right, it's inhumane, and no one should be subject to that type of treatment.
Yes, I agree.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Monique, tell us how to help. Tell us how to help. What do you need?
Elections cost money, guys. I had no idea how much money. When I joined this race, I never anticipated that I would raise as much money as I have. However, I also never anticipated that even though I raised more money than I ever thought I could, that it still isn't enough. I got my mail plan. It was $75,000 just to send out mail. And the reason it's essential is because people don't know who I am. I've been in the race since March. One of my opponents is very well known. And unfortunately, the bulk of the electorate does not research who they're voting for and how good of a person they would be for that particular seat. They check a box next to a familiar name, regardless of whether or not that familiar name has done anything to impact our justice system in a positive way. So I have to get my name out to as many voters as I can over the next 45 days, because the election is on August the 18th. And to do that, I need money, and I need a lot of it. So if you are able to donate and you believe in this cause the way I do, and I know all of the women on this conference do, then please go to my website at MoniqueForStateAttorney.com. It's MoniqueFor stateattorney.com, and donate. And there isn't an amount too small, but if you can give more, because this is a fight that I'm not fighting for myself. And I'll tell you, I'm not fighting it for my brother, because me being state attorney doesn't impact him one bit. I'm fighting for our community. I'm fighting for our community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's so great having you back here again, Monique. And every chance we get, we try to make sure that we keep you on our timeline, and we continue to share and ask others to share, like, and invite, and just try to keep your name and keep everything you stand for out there in front of the audience as much as possible. And we'll do everything we can just to see you win. And I would love to say Worrell for state attorney.
Worrell for state attorney.
State attorney.
Yeah, most certainly.
Absolutely.
Monique,
We're here. We're behind you.
I flew in from Texas to make sure that I was here to support you, and I would be here anyway. But I do want to leave the ladies with Lake Correctional Institution, where an inmate was actually killed. He was slammed on his neck broken, by a corrections officer who was walking free at the moment. One of the officers involved has a history of violence, and has a inmate has died before under his care. And so I call that serial killers in prison, corrections officer uniforms. So there is right now a protest going on outside of Lake Correction Facility, and I will be headed that way after I wrap up here. But I want to thank you all so much.
Yes.
Thank you, Monique.
Welcome.
We are here to support you. I'm excited. You almost took me to tears.
Me too.
With your family members, because I think all of us can identify
Yes.
identify what
definitely.
happens and when you feel helpless. So thank you so much for doing this. And I've told you before, I'm so glad that God did not allow you to step out of the race, because I think you came in like a week before COVID. So thank you again.
Thank you for your
Timing is divine, boy, I tell you, because if COVID would have hit first, I'd have been like, all right, maybe next time. This obviously wasn't my time, but this is my time, guys.
Yes.
This is definitely my time.
It is.
I don't think it's any coincidence that all eyes are on criminal justice right now. All eyes are on all things criminal justice right now. And I'm getting support from around the country. People from other states are sending me money to fight this fight. So, I just thank you for your platform. I thank you for your support and for your encouragement. Let's go win this.
Yes. Thank you.
One last thing before we go. I think, Monique, you did get an endorsement from Bernie Sanders. Am I correct?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
wow.
I got it.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Yes.
Yes. One more time, Monique, throw out the website that we can go to in order to support you, send out somebody to you.
Yeah, it's Monique for stateattorney.com, MoniqueFor stateattorney.com. And you can follow me on Facebook at Monique for State Attorney and on Instagram at Elect Monique State Attorney. You can see everything about me on the website and on the socials. Follow me, drop me a note of encouragement, because as I said before I got on, it's hard in these streets. It is hard in these streets. Listen, everybody doesn't want reform. So I'm in a battle every single day fighting for reform, but I'm doing it for you. So please.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate
You're awesome.
you.
I love you, Monique.
We love you.
Love you guys.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.